Hello, good evening, and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday, the 5th of November, 2025. Well, that reminds me of something. Is there something happening today?
Apparently, I don't know.
Oh, well, we'll see. On the 5th of November, 2025, coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello.
And me, David G7ERP. Lovely to see you. On tonight's show, we have the do's and don'ts of Powerline Interference with Mike K3RFI. Details of bit more detail and the price of our Christmas dinner. And we find out what on earth this is. We've had quite a few entries, and I'm not going to tell you we've got any right or wrong. We've got a mixture, I can tell you that, can't I? So if you think you know exactly what that is, pop it onto Facebook or BATC now, and we will read your entries when we read everybody else's. But first, I'm afraid I have to start the show with the sad news that we have lost one of our members from some years now, Mike Lehman, G4UUB. As you may know, Mike was an avid fox hunter in terms of radio. I remember him, although he didn't come to many meetings. It was probably in the era of the sort of 2000s when we met at the airport. But he didn't come to many meetings, but he did love fox hunting. He worked for Anglia Television. Jim G3YLA knew him well, and Jim actually gave me the news that Mike had passed. We've been desperately trying to find a picture of Mike, but without success. I also contacted the Norwich Engineering Society, who I knew he was a member of. They didn't have a picture of him either, so I'm very, very sorry. We've searched everywhere in our archives and everything. If you do have a picture of Mike, I would really like and appreciate it if you could email it to me, because then we'll include it in a newsletter article. So he'll be most remembered, for at least as far as I'm concerned, in thinking back to when we used to meet at the airport sort of 20 years ago. He loved fox hunting. And although this isn't probably the greatest memory in a way, I will particularly remember him for one night when we did a fox hunt, when we used to allow people to do it on their own. And we were at the White Horse at Crosswick, which is a pub where the final everybody met, and he didn't arrive, and it was a worrying time. And it turned out that he'd broken down. And that, if you ever wondered why, when we do fox hunts now, that we insist on 2 people, it was because he'd broken down. So he was a very, very keen fox hunter anyway, and a valued member of this club long before I joined it as well, you know, in the 80s and 90s as well. So we will bring you details of his funeral when we know them. Mike Lehman, G4UUB, sadly now silent key. Now we're in November. That means that we're not so far from Christmas. You may be like me and get annoyed when we see the shops selling Christmas decorations and things like that, and be selling them for over a month, in fact. But now we are in November, we can officially, I think about Christmas, and that means our Christmas dinner. As I've mentioned before, our Christmas dinner is on Wednesday the 17th of December, and last night we had a committee meeting to discuss prices of and some financial issues really, and one of the things we discussed was a subsidy that we would like to give to make sure the Christmas dinner was affordable by everyone, ideally. And although £16, as you can see there, is going to be the amount per person, it's quite a lot. It's for a 3-course meal. So apart from drinks, which you need to just buy on the night, whatever you want, then that covers all the food that you'll want. And I don't think anybody would leave there hungry.
No,
do you, Tammy? So
not.
We have a limit of 70 people. So, and I will be issuing the booking form from next week. It was only last night that we agreed the subsidy. It would actually cost you £19 in the place if you buy it yourself, but that's what we're going to subsidise. It's open to members and also their immediate family. So if you have a wife, a husband, partner, whatever, or your children, if they want to come to it. If you don't have one of those, you can also bring a friend instead, and the subsidy will apply to your friend as well. So that's Wednesday the 17th of December, Village Inn, Little Melton, and it's going to be £16 per person. Watch out next week, either at the club at CNS. I hope to have the form ready for then, and it will certainly be on the newsletter the next weekend. This is November the 5th, isn't it, Tammy?
Apparently, yeah.
I just wonder what happens. There's something about that date that just reminds me of something. But anyway, now the other thing one of the other things we discussed, what was that?
Fireworks.
It's 5th of November.
Wow.
Yeah, I can see our guest in the corner who's in the US probably thinking, why are they doing that? What is so special? This is very good, Tammy.
Thank you.
Do we pay you any more for this?
No.
No. Good. Okay. Anyway, yes, it is 5th of November. It's Guy Fawkes Day. So for Mike watching us in the States, and we'll be coming to you in a minute, Mike, that's what this is about. This is the special night. This is the 5th of November when Guy Fawkes was supposed to have, well, he did, I think. Did he blow up the Houses of Parliament?
No, he didn't blow him up, did they?
Well, he tried.
He tried.
He
Well, he thought about it.
Well, yes, anyway, let's not get onto that. No politics, as they say. The other thing that we discussed in last night's committee meeting, thanks for that, Tammy, really good job, was our subscriptions for 2026. The club basically has had quite a successful year financially. Thanks to lots more members, it means that the overheads that we have, which are the costs of running the club, and in particular that is the cost of hiring the school, which we only meet at obviously every other week. But because we have more members, it means that we've got more subs, and it means that we can spread that cost over many more people. Now, for the last 2 or 3 years, our subs have been £10 a year, which, by the way, is an awful lot less than the £20 to £30 it was just about 5-6 years ago. However, we want to share some of the success of the club. In particular, this year, we've done quite well with things like Barford, which is a fundraising event for this club to pay for it. And we can only think the only way to share the success of the club financially with everybody is to give you a discount on your next year's subs. So this is the news that for 2026 subs, if you are a current member, and only if you're a current member, you will only be charged £5 because the subs will be £10, but we're giving every current member, a paid up member, a discount of £5, which means that you will only pay £5 and you can renew from now. The only other condition is that you need to renew by the 31st of January 2026, which is quite reasonable for a year's subscription. For next year, it means you have just under 3 months to resubscribe, to pay your subs. If you're paying your subs, you pay it in the usual way. Most people will pay by bank transfer, but you can renew at the club in person. Please, if you're paying by bank transfer, make sure you use your call sign as a reference. And one other plea, quite a lot of people have changed their call sign in recent weeks for the reasons I've explained before. If you have changed your call sign for whatever reason, of course we expect you to use your new call sign, but make sure you have told us what your old call sign was, just so that we can do that. The treasurer, who you can imagine has a lot of these to deal with, we have over 200 members, so he has a lot of payments to reconcile and make sure that we get you down as your subs. It's a good idea as well if you can email him with payment details. All those details of how to pay are on the website. If you're not a member at the moment, but you want to join us, it will be £10, which is actually the subscription level. It's just that we think that this year has been particularly successful. Lots of you have made that successful because of events like Barford, and we really want to give a little bit back. And this is the one way that we can share that success with every single paid member. So once again, 2026 subs is going to be £10, but it's going to have with a £5 discount for every member who's a member now. If you want to join now, from new, you can. You'll pay £10. You can have the extra next 2 months worth of meetings, and you will be a member as well for the 2026. So it's £5 basically is the amount you pay if you are an existing paid up member of the club. Hope that's clear. I'll write a newsletter article to explain that, and we're open to subscriptions now, and you must pay, if you want that discount, by the 31st of January. Now on to members news. And Ralph, 2M0RHT, our Scottish correspondent of course, has written and said, always good to have the weekly newsletters and follow Wednesdays online. Your input very much appreciated here in darkest Scotland. That's his words. As you know, I'm very much involved with the James Clerk Maxwell Radio Society here in southwest Scotland. We meet monthly and put on special event stations such as this coming Friday and Saturday to commemorate the great man's death, James Clerk Maxwell. We will be operating at Parton Kirk, where Maxwell is buried. Indeed, our antenna will pass almost right over his grave. Parton is a small village near Glenlair's house, where Maxwell lived, on the A713 north of Castle Douglas. So it's a really special event. He says, Ralph says that we will be on 20 metres and 40 metres, and hope that some of the club members might listen out for Scottish voices. I'm guessing, Ralph, I've just thought of this really, that you might have a special event call sign for that. Maybe you're using your own, but will you let us know online?
Ralph is actually on Facebook at the moment.
Is he?
So maybe, Ralph, you could just pop it into
if you could pop that call sign in that you'll be using for that special event. That wasn't on your email to me, then we'll mention that as well. So good luck with that special event, and a great opportunity to work one of our members in Scotland to commemorate that great man's life, James Clerk Maxwell. And our second bit of news, now this is from Martin G7UGB, and he says, thought you'd be interested in what I did during the last NARC Live. Now, I don't know about you, Tammy, but I'm disappointed that anybody doesn't fully concentrate and focus on this, aren't you? Anyway, let's have a look at the picture.
It's weird to look at a picture of ourselves, because it's like exactly the same picture that I've just been looking at on the
Yes, we don't change our fashion much, do we?
No.
Anyway, Martin says that my wife bought me a marble run wooden kit for my birthday, and construction was done partly during the show.
Shocking.
I think it's good and bad. I don't know. I can't wish in equal measures. It took 2 days to complete. It didn't take 2 days for the work at NARC. I know we go on a bit, but not that long. Anyway, I've attached a photo and short video of the machine. So there's the picture of him watching NARC Live while trying to build this, and here's a video.
That looks really cool. It's like one of them games. It's similar, you remember you see them games where the penguins run down the
that's right.
thing.
But he made it.
Yeah.
All looks like laser cut wood.
Yeah, it's
know
really
anybody
cool,
with a laser cutter, Tammy?
I think it'd take a little while to cut all that out.
That's true. All right, well, Martin, thank you very much for sharing that news. We do love to hear from you, so do let us have pictures, videos, or anything like that to share. By the way, Ralph 2M0RHT has come back now with the special event call signs for this weekend. There's two. One is GB2JMC, so it's Golf Bravo 2, Juliet Mike Charlie.
Or James Maxwell Clark.
Or James Maxwell, yes, absolutely. Excuse me. It obviously couldn't JCM, I guess.
Yeah.
And MM0PMS. Mike 0, Papa Mike Sierra. They're the two call signs to look out for. And again, it was this Friday and Saturday. So good luck with that special event anyway, Ralph. Thank you very much. And thanks again for that pictures and video from Martin. Over to you for little people. I've done enough talking.
Okay, here's the little people this week. Have you ever wondered how you get all the different shapes of pasta? Because
yes, I have always wondered that, Tammy. Yes, it has worried me too.
This is how you start off with flat pasta, and then you just wring it out.
Is that how it is?
Yeah.
So you mean that pasta that we got the wrong stuff in the cupboard when we want some?
Yeah.
We've got pen, and we want the what's the curly one?
Oh, you know when the names of them. Do
I pen it, but I don't know what the other. I can't remember what the other one is. The spirally one. But so that means we. Oh, is it right? We can make that from it then, yeah.
Yep.
All right. Anyway, this is the wonderful calendar that they put a new picture on every day. It's a Japanese website, miniature-calendar.com. Tammy picks one out for us every week. So as I said, do keep in touch with what you're doing. We would love to get your pictures and videos to see, even if you are doing other things while trying to listen to us. Now let's have a look back. And only a week ago when we met before to ask you, what on earth is this? Now, we had a mixture of answers here. Percy, has anybody put this online? I don't want to miss anybody.
I think John did put on. Hang on a sec. Let me just go back. Yeah, John 20TWQ says, is it an expandable pipe bung? I assume he was talking about the what on earth, because it came in just after that.
Well, I hope it wasn't when he looked at me. It's not very nice, John. Right. Okay, and that's the only entry, nothing on BATC either. Okay, no. All right. Okay, well, let's have a look at what your answers were. Bruce G4KZT says, I think this week's item is a battery lantern. Pulling up the handle at the top reveals the lamp.
Ralph 2M0RHT, I suggest the lid for an inside filter from a small vacuum cleaner, such as a Henry.
Bob GASTU says, could this either be a water carrier or possibly a vacuum cleaner motor.
Phil G4LPP looks like an LED camper light.
Colin M0GMK says, I think this week is what on earth is a telescopic lantern for portable use, such as camping or fishing, etc.
Mike GAEY, this one looks like a telescopic battery-powered hiking or camping lantern.
And Bob G6PWS says, if the owner has a motorhome, I don't know, as I did, it's a handheld vacuum cleaner. I don't know if the owner had a motor. I don't think he has. But anyway, we better reveal what it is. We've got a bit of a mixture of answers here.
Andy2, no, what's this?
M0NKR.
M0NKR.
It says it's a smoke alarm tester.
Oh yes, one of them cone, like one of them cone things you put over.
And Tom Miller, G6TOM, I think now, is Dyson. Is it a Dyson flux capacitor? So it's getting a vacuum cleaner theme. So we've got divided answers now. We better reveal what it is, Tammy.
It was a lantern, and you pull it up.
G3 VPT. It was a lantern. Thank you very much, Paul, for sending that. That's what it is. It wasn't a vacuum cleaner part or a motor or anything else.
I do get that. It
I
might
do
have
as
looked
well.
a little bit something like that.
I thought that was, it's one of those things. I know when you know what it is, it kind of looks easy sometimes. I thought that was going to be one of the easier ones, but it clearly wasn't. Anyway, thank you very much, Paul, for sending that in. You foxed a lot of people there. And well done to those who got it right. And no, it wasn't a flux capacitor. I'll be fitting it in the car and going back a bit. When I had hair, that's a long time ago. Anyway, we better not get onto that. Let's have a look at what our new What on Earth competition is. When we ask you, what on earth is this? Or what's it for, if it hasn't got a special name? Do you know what that is?
I do.
Yeah, one of our members gave it to us, didn't
He
they?
did.
Very surreptitiously at a meeting.
Yeah.
And we've taken a picture of it. And we'd like you to tell us what that is or what it's for. You've got 2 weeks before we meet again online. Drop a line to radio@dcpmicro.com. If you do look at it on Facebook, please don't put it on there because it spoils it for other people having a guess.
You know how I normally say to you, you're not allowed to give clues?
Yes.
Well, I figured because it's literally sitting in front of me in the desk, it's not a clue as such, but because the photo doesn't show how big it is,
Oh, okay.
I thought I would actually hold it up.
So you're going to give them a clue?
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Okay.
But this is an exclusive clue, so you have to watch NARC Live to get it. Because if you just look at the picture on
see what you did
Facebook
there.
or on
Yeah.
the newsletter.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
all right.
here we go. That's how big it is.
Okay. So what, 50
So,
millimetres or
well,
2 inches in old money?
It's not
Yeah.
even 2 inches, is it?
Okay.
So there you go.
There we go.
Right.
That's it. Extra
it's gone.
bonus help. We could do this. This is a thing for watching NARC Live. There's a bonus help
Yeah,
there.
you
If you
get
know what that
bonus.
is. You've got 2 weeks anyway to let us know. Thank you very much indeed. So we're nearly ready to meet tonight's guest. Really looking forward to this because I think it's something that I think affects all of us and has done at some point. But before we do, just a time to have a look at what's happening at the club for this coming week. We've got the Koblenz Sked, by the way, which is normally would be this Saturday. It's now next Saturday, the 15th of November. So it's not a notice as such. It's to tell you that it's moved. So it's going to be Saturday, the 15th of November. This Sunday, though, at 7 p.m, we've got the GB2RS News on GB3MB. On Monday, the Monday Night Net with Steve, G3EVA hosting. And then next Wednesday, a week from tonight, on November the 12th, we have an informal social meeting at CNS between 7 and 9:30 p.m. And as I said before, don't forget to send us those pictures and the entries to What on Earth. And of course, if you'd like to send one of these cards to somebody you know, then we'll be very happy to do it. Just drop us a line with all those things to radio@dcpmicro.com. Now, I'm sure that radio frequency interference is something that has affected us all, either as consumers or particularly as radio amateurs, since we've got receivers to pick this sort of thing up. And there's a particular type of interference called Powerline Interference. And tonight's guest is an expert at helping people solve the problems with that. Not only is he a radio amateur, but he also has made a business from it. And we're going to meet him now, and he's going to tell us more about it. So it's lovely to welcome Mike K3RFI. Love the call sign, Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Dave.
Hey, great to see you. So we're going to leave everything to you to give us a talk about RFI and how we can avoid it and how we can prevent it and things like that. But as always at home, if you have any questions or comments for Mike, at any time. Don't leave it till the end. Just drop them onto Facebook or BATC and we'll read them to Mike at the end. But now over to you, Mike.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And I appreciate any questions you have, just make it that much better. The intent here is to hopefully clear up some misconceptions and give you a better understanding of power line noise and power line interference. Most of the time, they're not the same thing. But as David said, I've been doing this for a long time. I got introduced to it at a power company. I went to work at a power company as an auto mechanic and was harassed constantly about how clean I would stay. So they told me I belong in the telecommunications department. So I went there, found out that I didn't like it at all. I was very bored with sitting at a bench working on radios all day. And I kept hearing about this interference job that nobody liked. And it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I know they got harassed pretty bad by the customers. And I came from a towing business, actually was my family business. So I was used to hearing people not being very happy with the service they got. So in investigating this power line noise investigator job, I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was the most interesting thing I'd ever come across. The only thing I didn't like about it is nobody knew anything about it. And it was very clear why the customers were mad, because nobody ever contacted them. So to make a very long story short, I got involved into this, and it was quite a long road to success, to say the least, because I had no leadership. So in doing this, I just want to let you know that throughout the course of the program, I'll be talking about things, and it leads into many different aspects of the job, but we're going to stick to the power line noise thing. So when I tell you something that should be done or shouldn't be done, it's merely for the sake of noise. It's for the sake of interference, power line interference. Keeping that in mind, you'll understand why it doesn't branch out and why I'm not talking about everything. For one, with limited time, what I've done is I have taken a 2-day, 16-hour class that I give utilities and narrowed it down to about 45 slides or so. And I did that, and it's not easy to do that. It's very, very difficult because there's so many things I'd like to sit here and talk about. But to keep it reasonable, I've narrowed it down considerably to about a third of the slides that I share. So keeping that in mind, let's see, I started this business after about 10 years of working at a utility. I had a ham who was a commander on a military base call and say he had noise and they couldn't find it. Would I be willing to work when I could? He paid me to find the noise. So I went up and found it. It was very easy. Luckily, it was easy. And when I got back, I called the ham and I said, "You hear of anyone else that needs this service? Let me know." My phone started ringing that night, and there's never been a day that it hasn't rang for power line noise. And 35 years, I've never had a day without a phone call or an email and multiple different fashions about interference. So with that, I'm going to jump right into it. My business, I do locating, training, I do equipment recommendations. I also evaluate equipment and new equipment that comes out with ideas of improvements and how to make the equipment work better. So I'm involved into this in every way possible. As it stands right now, I believe I am the only company in the world that does not only just power line noise, but primarily power line noise. And I would love to know if somebody else does it. I'm more than happy to help them out. First thing I wanted to let you know about is last year, a group of about 16 of us completed the IEEE recommended practice for the location of power line gap interference sources. This book is available at the link that's at the bottom, or you can call the phone number at the bottom. I think this book is about $135 US dollars. But I'm not sure about that. And I think if you're an IEEE member, you get a discount over that. But this book was written by 17 people who all 17 of these people felt the other people knew what they were talking about. So all the contributions to this book were done together. We met every month. We did this for 5 years and completed this standard that hopefully all utilities around the world will use as the recommended practice and standard for their company as far as finding power line noise. The center of this all was primarily amateur radio because that's the #1 cause. However, there are many other facets, many other complainers of power line noise, police departments, fire departments, all types of different things, different two-way communications get interfered with. So this is something you want to keep in mind and something you might find very interesting and may want this in your library. Okay. First thing, power line noise. Power line noise is everywhere, and it's not impossible to get rid of it, but it's almost everywhere. The problem with power line noise is it's not always interference. And that's where the difficulties come in, because people that are trying to locate interference go out and fix power line noise. And it's not always the noises in front of the house or down the street that causes the interference. The interference can actually be miles away. So what I look for when I come out to find noise, if I'm hired by a utility, I come out to find the interference source, not all the other noises that are around. And you'll see more of why that goes on later. The investigation process, the first step is to observe the interference as it affects the complainant's equipment at the complaint location. So if you as a ham are complaining about noise, my first step is to come to your home while the noise is active, connect my receiver with various different assets to this equipment. I connect my receiver to your antenna so I can see what comes in through your system. And then I analyze the signature of the RFI symptom. So I analyze this picture that I get with my receiver, which I'll show you later. And I figure out what I think the problem is. And then I go out and locate the structure that's containing that source, that's creating the identified signature. So this is step 2. Then I have to find the source that's on that structure. So if I find a utility pole or tower or whatever structure it is containing the interference source, now I have to figure out what it is on that structure that's causing it. Okay, next, the repairs are made by crews working with the investigator, meaning me, to eliminate the identified sources. Okay, sometimes it's one, sometimes it's multiple on one structure. Okay, I'm sure a lot of you will find this interesting that the last step is to return to your QTH, return to where your site is, hook back up to your antenna and see what's there. Verify that the signature that I was looking for is eliminated and see if there's another possible source that needs to be found. Sometimes there's multiple sources. The game here is to hook up to your antenna, see which one's creating your S meter reading. The highest reading that you have on your S meter is created by the strongest noise, not the sum of all noises. So once I fix the strongest one, I come back, look again, and see if there's one that's weaker, and I go out and find that one. So it's a step process, a process of elimination, starting with the strongest. So every noise that I make a repair and eliminate, every interference signature I eliminate, it reduces your level of noise. And I keep going until it's down to a satisfiable level or nothing. And nothing is attainable depending on where you live. Sometimes this is a very easy process. Sometimes I come out to a ham's house, and again, I refer to it as a ham's home. It could be anything. It could be a fire department, a police department, or a communication site. But as of, can you see this mouse?
We can, okay. I think, yeah. It's near, you've got it near the RFI compliant.
Correct.
I just think if people are watching this on a very small screen, you may not see it, but it's around about the RFI compliant.
Okay, this is where the complaint is. The actual source for this complaint was way over here. That was more than a couple of miles away. Now, if you were to start at this complaint looking for the noise and went to the first noise outside of his house, which could be in front of his home, you would be wasting your time as far as eliminating his noise. Not only that, but you could also be starting more noises. Statistically, for every noise I send a lineman up to repair, if I haven't trained him on how to repair noises, he typically will start 2 new noises for every pole he works on. Well, if he starts on this pole on a noise at this pole and has to work all the way across here, imagine how many noises he could possibly start and totally make things so complex you'd never find it. So with the right equipment and right methodology, it can take you to this source and you can eliminate the 30 or 40 noises from the complaint to the source structure. Very important process. Okay, everything on this pole that's conductive, every piece of metal, brass, copper, aluminum, everything that's conductive on this pole stands the chance of becoming a noise problem. Anything that's metal to metal on this pole can cause a noise. That noise radiates out and, well, let me back up a bit. This pole, when this is built, everything is tight. And over time, you'll notice that you look up at a pole and the hardware is very loose. The nuts and bolts and washers are loose, a lot of air gaps between them. That is not a lack of maintenance. It's not a lack of their ability to make things right. The problem is these poles built, the structure built out of wood shrinks. And just like the deck on your house, if you build a deck on your house and you want the gaps to be 1/4 of an inch and you make them 1/4 of an inch, you come back 6 months later and your chair legs are falling between the gaps because the wood has shrunk. And that's what happens on the pole. This pole, the wood on this pole shrinks up and the hardware gets loose. And it's at these loose connections is typically where the power line noise comes from. So with that in mind, you get to a pole like this and you see things like the washer on the left side of the pole is loose. This washer is loose right here. And you can see the top of this bracket has pulled out, but it's tight at the top. So the electromagnetic field that's around the conductors on this pole, they radiate out away from the conductor. And as it passes, this EMF field goes across something that's conductive. It absorbs the energy and becomes an energized piece of equipment. So any metal on this pole has energy on it. Irregardless of anything else, there's an electromagnetic field that charges every piece of conductive material on this pole. And in the case of the washer on the left side, the conductive or the electromagnetic field gets induced into that washer. It also gets induced to the bolt that the washer's on. But one gets more voltage than the other. And if the two are electrically connected, they're the same potential. But when you have corrosion involved or an air gap involved, the two pieces have a different potential and they try to equalize their potential when the space between them breaks down. The gap in the air or caused by the air gap or the corrosion, when that breaks down, it discharges every half cycle. As it discharges, it creates RF. That RF that's created is radio frequency, just like your radio. And that RF wants to get out. It wants to travel. So it does, just like the electromagnetic field. That RF travels out and it gets induced into anything metallic on the pole and uses those things as an antenna. So when that RF from this washer on the bolt, if that's where the problem is, it radiates out, gets into all the wires on the pole, the ground wire, the power line at the top, the hot leg, the hot line, and it uses that as an antenna to get down the street. Now, these devices are so critical of the EMF that if you look at the right side of this pole, you can see a ground wire going up and down the pole. That ground wire is going under a staple right here. In this instance of noise, this staple is where the noise is. It's not the washer. It's actually this staple. This staple had about 100, I think it had over 100 volts induced into it, and it arced to the ground wire that's under it. And you may not see it, but there's an air gap between the ground wire and the staple. To stop this noise, I pulled that staple out and the noise was gone. If I had to have a staple there, I'd put another one up above it and remove this staple. I wouldn't hammer it back in. I would pull it out, put a new one next to it, and I would be done. And that's the number one cause of power line noise are these staples, not the insulators, not the cutouts, not the lightning arresters. All these things, they do cause noise, but it's not as common as the staple is. Okay, a couple of examples. This is in, this was Michigan. I think this was Michigan about a year ago. A ham radio operator had complained to the power company about noise. The big structure on the left is 138,000 volts. When they energized this circuit, the day they energized it, the noise started for this ham and wiped his radios out. They turned this circuit off. When they turned this circuit off, the noise went away. So they worked over this structure, worked on every piece of hardware on the structure, re-energized it, and the noise was there. They did this numerous times. Finally, they hired me, and I came up, and I'm sitting in my truck right where this photo was taken from, and I'm looking at the scenario. I got there on Sunday. We were scheduled to start the following day, and I'm sitting here looking at this, trying to figure out what it is. One of the things that I do when I arrive on a job is I look at everything before even trying to find it. I look over every square inch of the structure and the structures around them. And sitting here, I got this crazy idea that the problem isn't this circuit at all. The problem is when they energize this circuit, it's 138,000 volts. The electromagnetic field is so strong that it actually energizes the pole that's to the right. There's a pole with what's called distribution voltage. It's about 7,000 volts from line to ground. And it energizes, I'm thinking it's energizing everything on that pole. So when they take this circuit out, when they de-energize the transmission line, it removes the energy from the hardware on the smaller pole at the distribution voltage pole, and the noise goes away. So I point my antenna over there and I see noise coming from that direction. I get out and I walk to the right so I can point from the big structure to the little structure. And lo and behold, the noise wasn't on either one of those. The noise was actually on the street light pole to the right. That street light pole is getting energized from the EMF from this big structure to the left. And here's the culprit. There's two wires going to this light. One is a neutral and one of them is the hot leg. The hot leg is insulated and it's not doing so bad. However, there's no ground on that light pole. The light, the arm that holds the light has no ground on it. So the neutral is laying against it. If this works, the neutral right here. Oh, sorry about that. The neutral right here is laying on this steel pipe, and the steel pipe is getting energized from the transmission circuit in the previous shot. So all I did was I took a stick, an insulated stick that I'm qualified to use, and I pulled this off that pole and the noise stopped. So I called the people. I called the guy that hired me that night, had the crews out here the next morning. They replaced the pole, the light arm, the light, and everything. It was all very, very old. So they just put all new stuff there, and the ham was very happy. They had spent well over $100,000 in man hours and work to try to eliminate this noise because it started when they put that tower up. So they just assumed that's where it was. This is a very, very common scenario in my business. Okay. This is a really, really good example of what goes on. At the top, you got an energized conductor and you got a piece of trash hanging on the conductor. If that trash has a good, clean connection to the conductor, then it won't make noise. But we all know that's not possible because both get corroded, so they're separated by the corrosion. So this wire hanging there is arcing to the line. Now, if this line is 7,000 volts, and that's just an example, it was actually much more than that. But if this line is 7,000 volts and this trash that's hanging on the line gets the induced voltage from that phase, it's going to have very, very close to 7,000 volts. Okay, and hanging on that If I were to take that off, if somebody sees this wire hanging on the energized conductor and they see it, a lineman sees that, he'd have no problems going there and taking it off. He'd know that shouldn't be there and he would remove it. Not that it's going to hurt anything, but he'd take it off. If I take that trash off and hang it down on the neutral below it, then what happens? Well, unfortunately, the electromagnetic field from the primary above it will induce a voltage into that trash. Now you've got the induced voltage into that trash and it's hanging on a grounded conductor. So you've got ground potential at the neutral, and that trash has an induced voltage on it that's probably several thousand volts. The difference is the several thousand volts difference between that and the grounded conductor below it make a much hotter spark than that trash hanging on the primary does. So you've got maybe 100 volts difference at the top hanging on the conductor, the energized conductor, and thousands of volts induced into the trash hanging down on the ground. So the noise is much worse. Now, that also relates to the fact that that neutral conductor goes to the pole and goes in the homes. So if you lived within a reasonable distance, possibly as much as 2 miles, and you build a really nice piece of equipment, you put it in a box, you got the neutral running in the box, your neutral is the same as the ground inside your home. Well, then that noise that's riding that neutral is going to be totally radiating from the box that you've built your equipment in. So you build this box and expect it to be shielded when really you've just put the antenna for the noise all the way around it. And if a lineman sees that wire hanging on the neutral, he's not going to think twice about it. He wouldn't even, it's very unlikely that he would even bother to remove that. Okay, this is relatively new. I've been finding this, the first time I found this was actually like 30 years ago. But this type of hardware really wasn't big 30 years ago. It was in the past 10 years that this type of hardware really started getting used everywhere. And this has become very close to my #1 noise source just about everywhere I go. What you've got here is you've got this big bracket here and it has a lightning arrestor on it. Then over here, this is called a pothead. This is where the primary comes from underground and hangs up here. Okay. Now you've got this fiberglass arm that attaches to the pole to the right, and to the left is here holding this bracket out here. This wire that's coming along here underneath of that bracket or underneath of that fiberglass is the ground wire. So this ground wire is taped to this fiberglass arm. It comes around and attaches to the bottom of the lightning arrestor. The problem is this ground wire is very, very close to this bracket, and it's arcing right here. It's so close to that bracket, the induced voltage from the primary, the induction into this bracket can be several hundred volts. So there you got 700 volts between the ground and here that's arcing, and it radiates because that ground is because that arcing is to the ground. It goes right down the pole, gets into the line going in, the neutral line going into your home, and makes it a very bad problem. Okay. This is actually K3LR, Tim Duffy's problem. And this was a really funny problem because I had a hard time convincing the power company what needed to be done to eliminate it. This is nothing unusual about this setup. Right here we have, they call it a lateral. It's a lateral tap that goes across the street to a pole and then goes around the neighborhood. Underneath of it is a guy. This is called a guy wire, a head guy. It goes from this pole to a pole across the street. And it's just used to guide this pole because of the transformer being heavy on this side. It's there to help stabilize the pole. But it's so slack, it really isn't doing that. Now, right here, you have another guy wire that's going to the same pole that this one is. Doesn't make much sense to me. But when you go to the next pole, this is how they attach to the pole across the street. There's nothing on this pole. This is just called a guy pole, and it's there to help the pole across the street. The problem is with that circuit, this circuit being over top of this circuit is inducing a voltage into this guy, and that guy wire is arcing at this rusty, they call this a goat head. It's an anchor for this guy. As you can see it, obviously it looks like a goat head. You know, these are the horns, this is the face of the head. It was arcing right here. Well, when I told the utility that the arcing was at the goat head on this pole, they thought that was absolutely ridiculous and couldn't be the case. So I actually had to take, I have a device called a hot stick line sniffer, and I pointed it on the end of a stick right at this point and videotaped it. And as I turned the stick away, turn the hot stick sniffer away, the noise would go away. If I touched it right here between this guy and this anchor, if I touched the two together with a screwdriver, the noise would stop because it would have a different path. So once they replaced this, and again, they replaced this whole pole and the anchors, that eliminated a problem. But these are the types of out of the ordinary things, and it's not out of the ordinary for me, but this is the type of thing that people have a hard time believing and don't understand when they go out to look for these noises, that it's not always something that should be obvious to anybody. It can be, you really got to think outside the box. Okay, here, this is, I did a job in Tennessee, one of the states here, and told the lineman that we're probably going to find staples as the biggest cause of the problems, and he thought that was very funny. But this is the noise. This ground wire was laying on this staple, and that's where the arcing was occurring. He didn't believe that. He thought that was absurd, that there's no way that could possibly be the cause. So after much debate with him, I had him go up on a pole. I found this lightning rest of this staple right here to be the cause of the noise. And I told him to take a voltmeter up there and put one probe on the staple and the other probe on the ground and measure the voltage. It was 139.8 volts induced into that staple. So that's worse than taking the power out of the outlet of your house and shorting it to the ground. That's how hot that noise was. And this ground goes right down, right below here, attaches to the neutral, which goes right inside these houses and feeds all the outlets. Okay, we went to the next place. Again, this guy didn't believe the staple theory. So we went to another one. His lead man went up and did the same thing. And he measured this staple that I had found, this staple to the ground wire. We had to clean the ground off so you'd get a good connection. He had 267 volts DC on that staple. That's a pretty hot arc. That'll definitely cause some noise. Okay, moving along here. RFI caused by AC sparking sources using signature analysis. What we're doing here is trying to make this process as simple as possible. A fellow by the name of Marvin Lofness, KB7KK, invented this idea quite a long time ago. When I found Marv, we soon became very good friends and actually became business partners. I started RFI Services, and he became my partner and mentor. Elmer, he was the man. Probably forgot more than I'll ever know. But when you look at this is an oscilloscope. We take the audio from a receiver, put it into an oscilloscope, and we see the sound. This gives us a signature for the sound. They're all different. Some of them can be very close, but some of them, for the most part, they're very different because they sound different. So this, your receiver rectifies the RF, turns it into audio. We take a scope and look at the audio from the scope. So what I want to do is explain this to you, what these are and how it all occurs. This is the screen that's on a model 243 Radar Engineers receiver. And you'll see this again in a couple of minutes, but this is the complaint. Now, by looking at this pattern, I can tell you right here, there's two different noise sources together. The left group is the positive half, the right group is the negative half of the sine wave. So these noises are riding on the peaks of the sine wave. If you look really close, you can see right here a little dark area. That's because there's another noise overriding this discharge. And over here, you see the same thing. Okay, this noise, this and this are created by one noise source, but this is the negative half of that noise, and this is the positive half of that noise. So to make things interesting and maybe create more questions for you later, this is telling me I'm using 3.6 megahertz. This is telling me the amplifier is on. This is telling me it's wideband, and wideband for this is probably 150 kilohertz, very broad. This is a filter that's not being used, and this is my S meter. Okay, so here's what I'm doing. These spikes are telling me that as the voltage rises on the cycle, as the voltage comes up, when the voltage gets high enough that discharge can occur in the gap, wherever that gap is, it discharges. Well, because the voltage is still climbing, it continues to discharge. And then as the voltage comes back down, until the voltage gets so low that it doesn't have enough to jump the gap anymore, it stops. So all the way across 0 volts, all the way to the next half cycle, then it starts again, and it discharges. Depending on the size of the gap and how much voltage there is, will determine how many spikes there are. So these spikes are determined by the size of the gap or the voltage across the gap. Okay, so this is the positive half and this is the negative half. The height of these spikes are determined by the signal strength. So as I move closer to this source, these spikes are going to get taller, right in line with the S meter. So without looking at the S meter, I watch these spikes, and as they get taller, I attenuate it, reduce the level to make them weaker. So I only see it while I'm in the field of the energy. When it gets weaker, it goes away. Okay. Now, knowing that this is my noise source, I'm at the complainant's house, I record this noise. I can record 20 seconds of it, or I can take a picture of it. I can record it with my phone, or I can record it using the receiver's recording device that's built into it. So I go out, the first noise I see is this. This doesn't look at all like the noise that I recorded. So I know this is not his noise. It may sound a lot like it, but because it doesn't look like it, it's not his, and I don't look for it. Okay, I ignore this because I don't want just noise. I want the interference signal. So I would ignore this. Okay, then I go down the road a little further and I see, whoop, wrong way. I go down the road a little further and I see another noise. This doesn't look at all like the one that I'm looking for again, so I would ignore this. Even though, especially without the trained ear, they would sound very much alike. Even to a trained ear, they sound very much alike, but it isn't it. So I keep going. Now, this is definitely a power line noise, but it isn't the same pattern I got from the complaint. So again, I ignore it. Even though it's a power line noise, I don't care what this is because it isn't what's bothering my customer. Again, I've got another noise source. This is 2 sources. Again, you see the thick line here. That's because another noise is riding right on top of this line, and the same thing over here. But this is not the complaint, so I'm going to ignore it again. Okay, here we got multiple power line noises at one time. There's 3 or 4 different noises here. But again, I don't see the noise I'm looking for in this. So again, I'm going to ignore it. Now I'm using a different antenna. I went up in frequency a little bit. Now I'm at 7.5. Okay, I'm at 40 meters, and I'm looking at 40 meters. I went up in frequency because as you get closer to the noise, as you get closer to the noise source, it'll be detectable at higher frequencies. Noises travel in all directions at all frequencies, but higher frequencies are attenuated very fast going away from the source. So as you're far away, you want to use a lower frequency, the lowest frequency possible. And as you attenuate it on your way to the source, then you get to where the noise is strong enough, you can move up in frequency, which will narrow down the area of your search considerably. Okay, so this, I say, this is his noise. This is the noise I think is his. No doubt about it. I go back to my recording. I look at the recording that I made, and I make an active recording so I can watch every little discharge and see how it reacts to one another. And I can say, yes, this is definitely the one that I want. Okay. Now, one thing very little understanding of is that noises, you might find a noise 2 miles from your home, but that noise doesn't usually radiate 2 miles. Depending on the frequency and the antenna you have, you can have a 80-meter beam and a whole lot of space to put it up. but an 80-meter beam could easily hear something 2 miles away. But most of the time, what happens is a noise is generated on a structure, and then it radiates out from that structure. If you're close to it, then you'll pick it up. If you're not close to it, you may not pick it up unless it's conducted. If it's conducted down the power lines, it'll keep re-radiating from that power line until it gets close enough that where your antenna can hear it. And that's what you're going to be looking for initially in your search. You want to find out where you're receiving it from, because that'll be closer to your QTH. And then you go from that point, following the signal down the road toward the higher signal levels, continuously attenuating it until you get to the source. And then you only have it at one pole. Okay. The other means, induction, is when the noise will be very close, and it'll actually go around the transformer or through the transformer into your home. Sometimes this can be caused by noises inside your house or your neighbors, and go right from one house to the next using the wiring. In that situation, let's say you have, let's say in your kitchen you have a battery powered radio, and you're sitting there and you're listening to the noise, and you plug it in, or you unplug it from the wall, and the noise goes away. With it plugged into the wall, you get noise. When you unplug it, it goes away. That's because it's using the wiring in your house to get into your radio, and that radio station is strong enough to overcome that noise when it's unplugged from the wall. This is very, very common. Re-radiated is where the noise will start on one circuit, like could start at a substation, get induced into the power line that it's not even associated with, get induced into that power line, and go down the road and travel for miles. Those are the more complex for most people to find. And that's actually one of the noises that I first had to investigate when I started doing interference. So I learned the hard way very fast. Okay, along your search, you'll see peaks and nulls. So as you're driving down the road, you'll see peaks and nulls, and the peak is always going to be strongest at the point of the strongest radiation, which is typically the source structure. So when you get to the source of the noise, your peak is going to be stronger there. There's slight differences in that, sometimes very, very strangely, not strangely, but very, very rare. But every now and then you can get a peak at the pole before it, because there's a lot more equipment on that pole to radiate the noise from. But there's a couple of things that cause these peaks and nulls, and I think you'll find this interesting. Most of my searches that I do, most of the time, I use 143 megahertz to find power line noise. And there's several reasons. One is I can use a directional antenna that's very small. My directional antenna is barely 2 feet wide. It's very small and extremely effective. And there's nothing at 143 meg to interfere with me, which makes it very easy. So in that example, if I'm traveling down the road utilizing 143 megahertz to find my noise, I'll see peaks and nulls as I'm driving along. And guess how far apart the peaks and nulls are? They're 2 meters apart. So if I've got my gain turned down real low, and I drive up and the noise peaks, and I turn my gain down real low, and if I go forward, it goes down. If I go backward, the signal level goes down, and I might get the peak. If I get out of my truck and draw a line beside my tire, and then I drive away from that, guess where my next line is going to be drawn? Right at 2 meters. So if I change my frequency to 6 meters or to 50 megahertz, guess how far apart the peaks are going to be? They're going to be 6 meters apart. So this is something to consider. And the reason why it's important is because when you're at your house and you're on the air and you get a noise, if I come out to look for your noise and I fix the noise in front of your house, that noise that's coming off the structure in front of your house may have nothing to do with your reception issues. You may not hear that noise at all, even though it's right in front of your house. When that noise leaves that pole and radiates at all frequencies, the frequency you're using will determine whether you hear it or not. So if you're on 40 meters, that noise could hit your tower at a null and you wouldn't hear it. If you have another tower that's 40 meters away, guess what? It's going to hit it right at the peak, and you'll have that noise as a strong noise source. This is something that it took me a while to figure out, and it's very difficult to convince people that the noise in front of their house is not their noise and their noise is a mile away. And, 15 to 20 noises between the two that aren't bothering them. This is a very, very common occurrence. And this is one of the things that makes power line noise so frustrating to utilities, because they don't get the opportunity to learn these things. And that's something to keep in mind. And it's very important that they get the opportunity to figure these things out, because when they get to you, they're not going to know what they're doing. And that's why it's very important to let the power companies know when they have noise affecting your house, affecting your equipment at your home. Okay, equipment needed for locating. You need a receiver. My receiver of choice is a Radar Engineers Model 243. It was designed for noise. It's very expensive. I think it's probably $8,000 or $9,000 now. It's not the noise that the average ham, or not the interference locator, the average ham would want. But there are older models, the 242 and the 240 and the 236, 239, model 239 are all very good receivers for finding noise. So you need a receiver, you need an oscilloscope. That's extremely important to be able to see a signature, or AKA a fingerprint for that noise. Makes it so much easier to discriminate between different noise sources and not go after looking for the wrong one. That's the biggest weakness in this process, is not being able to identify the right noise source, the right interference source, and not go out just fixing noise sources around the neighborhood. The next tool is a parabolic dish. And I'm missing something here, I see. There's a parabolic dish, and I wanted to say, I don't know how I missed that, but I got something missing here. Oh, that's all messed up. Okay, the parabolic dish, this is several $1,000s. It's extremely sensitive and a very good tool to use for finding power line noise. It works very, very well. And I think I'm probably about 95% with this. So if I have a noise on a pole, utilizing this dish from the ground, I can find 95% of them. If I can't find it, then I know what it is. I know why I can't find it. There's very few things up there that would keep me from finding it. And typically, if I don't hear it with this device, then I know what it is. Okay. The other device is the hot stick line sniffer. This is, in my opinion, the tool that no one that does radio frequency interference, no power company should not have this. This device finds the noise source on the structure. This is a hot stick tool, and you use it from the bucket, or in my case, a lot of times from the ground, and locate exactly where the point of the spark is on the structure. This is indispensable. I have never had a power line noise on a structure I couldn't find with this. My only limitations are the voltage. There are many people out there that will use a stick at 230 and 345,000 volts. I'm not one of them. And they do it with education. The guys know what they're doing and experience, but that ain't me. I have too much respect for high voltage. Last but not least are antennas. There's a couple of antennas I would recommend. The 75, 80 meter whip to start your search. And then you'll notice that the noise level is really strong. Then you can go to a VHF or UHF Yagi. And anybody needs any help with these antennas, you're welcome to email me, give me a call, and I'll be glad to tell you, make recommendations as to exactly which ones you want. There's antennas out there, especially the directional antennas, that you would be amazed at how well they work, and you look at them and say, there's no way that's going to work. But the antennas and how you hold and use these antennas, and all this is explained in that book that I showed you in the second slide. The name and model number of these antennas, that's a really good book for reference, but it has the manufacturer and everything for all these antennas in it. And I'd be glad to give them to you if you call me. Okay, make sure I'm where I'm supposed to be. Okay, this is the Radar Engineers Model 243. This thing is a small box. It's probably 12 inches wide. It's about 1.5 inches deep, and tall. It's probably 8 inches tall. It's got a nice bright screen. It gives you actually a cycle and a half on the screen, which doesn't make any sense to me. But you can record noises. You can record 20 seconds of the noise. and then play it back. As you can see, I'm playing this video back. It shows you the frequency. It shows you the level of the noise. It's a really, really great tool. It's battery powered. You can plug it in. If I go into a house, I always plug it in case there's something coming through the wires. I wouldn't see it using batteries, so I plug it in. It goes from 500 kilohertz all the way up to 1,000 megahertz. This is the cat's meow of RFI. Very, very good tool. Okay. Locating the complaint interference, not just any noise. If I come to your house, the one thing I want you to know is I need access to your antenna. I don't have to come in, but I need access to your antenna. This is down in Florida. This guy worked for the power company there, and I made an appointment with a ham there in Bradenton, Florida, and I told him I needed access to his antenna. So he called me early that morning and said he had to go to the hospital. He works on hospital equipment and he had to go repair something. He couldn't be there. I said, well, I don't need you to be there. Just put your antenna cable out the window of your shack and I'll connect to it and I'll find whatever I see. I told him, if you put your rotor out there, cover it up in a bag, because it rains every day down there. I said, cover it up with a plastic bag. If you put the rotor out there, I'll find all the noise in every direction. So that's what we did. We utilized his rotor. We found the noise, his primary noise, and we found one about 190 degrees in the other direction. And we were able to find and fix that utilizing his rotor to locate the noises. And that worked out great. I didn't need to be in his house. I like that's preferably to go in, because then I get to learn more about him and he gets to talk to me and tell me all about his life story. And we get to be friends. But as a last resort, this works quite well. And I have a lot of customers around the US that do this for me when I'm going to be in town. So I don't need to bother them. I can pull right up. If I'm working for the utility where they live, I pull up, I look and see if he's got noise. If he does, I find it. If he doesn't, I let him know, man, everything sounded good. Okay, so now I'm going to come into your house. You open your door, I come to your house. I ask you to turn on your receiver. You turn on your receiver or transceiver, and I want to look at the frequency you're using, which is, in this case, is 50.135 meg, and I want to see your signal level. Your signal level here is about 5.5, between 5 and 6, and I don't pay a whole lot of attention to these two. I don't pay much attention to the spectrum analyzer or the oscilloscope, because I'm going to hook one up to it. But what I want to see is your signal level. The signal level is between 5 and 6, and this is your frequency. So your antenna works at 50.135 meg. So I hook my receiver up to that, and I go and I dial in 50.135, and then I turn my gain down until I'm right at the same level that you are. Now my receiver hears the same level you do, because my receiver was designed to hear noise. Yours was designed to not hear noise. I want to make them equal, and I do that by starting with the same level of noise that the customer has. So once I do that, I see the noise. Now I'm going to rotate the antenna, and this is the same ham's house that I showed that receiver in, and this is in Orlando, Florida. This is his house in the middle, and he has, every time I come there, he's got this set up where he hands me a map, and we rotate the antenna around, and we try to figure out where the noise is. Now, which direction the noise is coming from. So by doing this, I get a bearing on where it is, or I can take the next step and use Google Earth and actually draw lines in the direction of his sources. Now, I didn't do all this at one time. I did one at a time, and it accumulated over the day. So I go down, I find the first one down here to the southeast. The second, third, and fourth, and fifth one were all to the southeast. Then I come back up and I find one way up to the north, a couple of more to the north, and the last one is due west. And all these were located by rotating his antenna and getting a direction and going in that direction to find them. A very good methodology behind all this. It works really good. I really appreciate the map view, because you can actually see what you're up against when you get there. And once you get there, I can zoom into this map and see where I'm going. And when I get there, it's like I've been there before. I'm familiar with the surroundings, and it really helps. Okay, once we find the source structure, then we want to get out with an antenna, and we want to verify that that structure has the source. We don't want to take it for granted that the structure is right beside us from inside the vehicle, because I could be pointing at that pole and there'd be something in the woods behind it or on the next block. So I'm going to walk around that pole with these two 143 megahertz antennas. This is the antenna I said is quite unbelievable to think this thing really works that well. Originally designed for hunting dogs, to find hunting dogs. This thing works really, really good. I had them design one lower than that, down at 143 for me, and I'm sure they sell more at 143 meg than they do up at the frequency they use for finding the hunting dogs. But these two guys are walking around a pole that's in front of them, and then they'll walk on the other side of the pole and look back this way. And from every angle they can get in, they verify that everything they're pointing to is that one pole, so they know that that pole has their source. Then they're going to get the dish, the parabolic dish that's made by radar engineers, and they're going to walk around the pole in several angles to determine what it is on that pole that's causing the noise. This isn't an easy shoot at process. You look up, you determine what you think it is, then you move to a different location and point at that same object. Then you can tell if it's actually something off to the side of that or something. So you keep doing that, keep triangulating, even with the ultrasound, until you determine what it is. Now, this process has a great weakness to it. Ultrasound is wonderful. It really works good. However, it's expensive. The devices such as this, the MFJ 5008, this hit, and it was a big hit. People loved it. The problem is this thing doesn't hear very well at all. What it hears mostly are the things that aren't the problem, because the sensitivity of this device is so low, it doesn't typically hear the problem that you want to find. What it typically hears are insulators like this at the bottom, because this insulator emits corona off of the side of this skirt, all the way around it in this area. There's corona discharge off of this skirt. And this is an old 7 or 10 kV porcelain insulator. And this device will hear that, but very rarely actually hears the problems that I hear with the 250 with the radar engineers model. This is very important. I've evaluated these many times, and they really aren't worth the time it takes to put one together. It really isn't. It's very misleading. I've actually had power companies told by the FCC that they had to fix 40 some noises to cancel the FCC complaint. FCC is a Federal Communications Commission that's here in the States. And if they come out and say you got to do something, typically you do it. But after the long haul, they hired me to come out and find it. And out of 43 complaints the FCC told them they had to fix, not one of those 43 were the cause of the problem at the Ham's house. Not one of them. And I fixed 44. That's it. And I did that over a course of 3 days. So keep that in mind. The sensitivity of this device is very directional when you're within a few feet of it. And I think as far back as 12 or 15 feet, I could actually hear the arc that was in front of me. I have an arc in my lab that I use to measure these tools with. And from about 12, 15 feet away, I could hear it, but I couldn't pinpoint it. Sometimes it would be high, sometimes off to the side, but never right at the arc that's behind a small 1/4 inch hole. Actually, I think it's smaller than a 1/4 inch. Okay. Powerline noise source characteristics, sensitivity to weather. They're very sensitive to weather. In the rain will short out the gaps, even wind, vibration, rain, humidity. The rain and humidity, just the elevation and humidity can short these gaps out. That's why on humid days, you don't have as much noise if the noise is an external source. Dry weather does just the opposite. During dry seasons, the poles shrink up and hardware gets loose and you get noises that you wouldn't normally have. It's kind of like in the wintertime. In the wintertime, you walk across your rug and you touch the doorknob and it shocks you. Well, on a humid day, that wouldn't happen. There'd be conduction in the air, and you wouldn't have that issue. Most importantly, broad frequency range. Power line noise arcs at all frequencies, which means if you have power line noise on your radio and you change the frequency, if the sound of the noise changes, it is not a power line noise. It's not an arcing source. Okay. The arcing source creates all frequencies. So changing the frequency does not change the sound. And it also doesn't change the pattern on the scope. That's the most, one of the most important clues that I give people that are looking for noise. Okay. Very important. Myths and mistakes. I think we got maybe 2-3 slides left. Myths, you should start repairing the noise sources closest to the complaint. That's false. You do not want to do that because most of the time that's not the source that's bothering the complaint. Okay. Noises detected at a pole are caused by power company equipment. Okay. If a noise is radiating from the utility company equipment, the utility is required to locate the source and is responsible for correcting the issue. That is false. That's false because many inside noises come back out on the power lines and radiate up and down the roads on the power lines. And it is not a power company issue. They're only responsible for repairing the things that they create. Okay. I need to look for power line noise using the same frequency used in the shack. That's also false. You use whatever frequency your antenna works best at. So if you have a 80-meter antenna and you're using 20 meters, guess what? It's going to hear a whole lot better at 80 meters because you're using an antenna that's not tuned for the frequency you're on. It only makes sense that when you utilize the antenna at the frequency it's designed for, it's going to work the best. Okay, transformers, cracked insulators, and loose tie wires are likely sources of power line interference. They aren't likely, but they can be, but they're not likely to be the cause. These are not the more common sources. Transformers are very rare. I find a lot of transformers making noise, but they're very seldom the cause of the interference. Cracked insulators are very rare. I don't see them at all. I haven't had a cracked insulator be the cause of a noise complaint probably 20 some years. Loose tie wires, for loose tie wires to be the cause, they can't have a connection anywhere. So you got a tie wire that's close to 6 feet long and it's wrapped around the insulator 2 or 3 times and then wrapped around the line that is holding to the insulator several times. If it has a connection anywhere, it's not going to arc in another place because they become one potential. Okay. Next, corona is a source of RFI complaints. Corona is almost never the cause of an interference complaint. There are companies that sell equipment and they utilize corona as an example, well, meaning corona cameras. They use an arcing on a pole as an example because the arc will emit a corona gas and it detects it, but that's not the cause of the noise. The cause of the noise is a spark or an arc and it creates corona. Corona does not create the problem. Okay. Next, and last but not least, and I can't emphasize this enough, not complaining is the number one cause of not resolving power line interference. That's number one. Okay. If you're not calling the power company for them to know that you have a problem, how are they going to know? They're not going to get any training. They need to know right away when you have a power line noise. Let the burden of proof be on them. Let them know you have a complaint. It's their power line. Even after you find it, it's going to take just as long for them to get out there. So start complaining soon. Power line noise complaints are way down, but the power line sources are way up. Okay, so you have to complain. Let your power company know and let them know there's somebody out here that can help them. If your power company were to call me and ask for advice, I'd give them everything I possibly can over the phone. I don't want to fly out to UK every time somebody calls a complaint in. I have no problems with explaining to them the process and training them over the phone the best I can to get them going in the right direction. I'm not going to be on the phone with them for 16 hours, but I'll do everything I can to help them locate the noise. So you can recommend that they call me. Part of my job, and there's not a day that goes by that I'm not answering questions for someone, whether it's a ham or a power company or some other telecommunications organization. So by all means, if you have a noise problem, complain, let them know, be heard. Okay, last but not least, don't take your safety for granted. This photo was taken in 1979. I took the photo. This was my assistant. We were walking down the road. We were taught to hit poles and look for a change in the noise, and then we'd know the noise is there. Well, look out these poles going down the road. We hit every one of them. We got to this pole, and there was a retirement or a nursing home right across the street from this pole. And I told Tim here, I said, Tim, we need to go down and get our hard hats so we look professional. And we did that. He ran down, got the car, came up, gave me a hard hat. I stood right where he is, and I hit this pole with the sledgehammer, and a steel lag fell off that pole. That lag was every bit a pound and hit me on the head with my hard hat. Had I not done that, I may not be here today. I may have been in a different position, and it might have ripped through my shoulder or something. Who knows? But beating these poles with a sledgehammer is a very bad idea. There's a lot going on overhead, and anything could be happening. When they build these poles or repair them, there could be a piece of hardware hanging on the line or hanging on a nail, and all it takes is to hit that pole and it come down on you. So don't do this. I got a call from a power company. They asked me to call their customer. The guy was very upset, threatening to sue him, and he had been calling them for 10 years. So I called this guy up, and I said, I'll be there. I can be there at about 7 o'clock in the morning. He said, well, he says, I got a contact to make in the morning. He says, if that noise is on, I'll just have to go hit that pole again. I said, well, don't hit that pole again. You've been lucky for 10 years. Don't hit that pole again. As I entered the neighborhood, I saw people standing outside. And when I came around the corner, I saw the line on the ground burning. And I saw this guy standing next to this pole with a sledgehammer in his hand and not feeling very good about what he had done. All his neighbors came running over, and they were telling me I wasn't for the power company. I was there for the power company, but I didn't work for them. But they were telling me all about it. So I called, as soon as I saw the line on the road, I called the power company. They sent somebody out, and they took care of it all. And that guy had to pay for the replacement of this pole and everything else that had to be done because of this pole. This pole down at the bottom looked like a Slim Fast commercial. It was really skinny where he had been beating it for years with a sledgehammer. And all his neighbors came running over, telling me how they'd been telling that guy for years to stop hitting that pole, and he wouldn't listen to him. So remember, that pole belongs to the power company. Everything on it belongs to them, and they're responsible for everything that happens on that pole. So make them liable for the problem. Don't do it yourself. Make them learn how to do it. And that's one of those standards in that standards book. It actually tells how long it should take for them to contact you, how long it should take for them to visit you, and how long it should take them to find noise or hire somebody to help them do it. With that, I'll turn it over if there's any questions. I really appreciate you guys allowing me to talk, but I'm open for questions.
Mike, thank you very much indeed. I don't think I'll be the only one watching this that's been fascinated by it. RFI is something that I guess as radio amateurs we all kind of think we know something about because we're tested on it, with EMC and as part of our licenses. But this side of it I've never considered really before. I'm not sure how many of the things that you've talked about in terms of power companies in the UK, maybe they all apply. I don't know. I've never had experience of it. But whatever, it's been a fascinating talk. Now, for everybody at home now, this is your chance, if you haven't already done so, to ask Mike questions about anything, about any of the experiences, or maybe put some of your own, or make any comments. This is the time to do it. And Mike, I'd like to start by asking you how many, or how much proportion of your business is with radio amateurs booking you to do this, and compared to the general public?
Well, I get calls every day from radio amateurs. I guess I can turn this off, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I get calls all the time from amateurs wanting to hire me and asking to hire me, but I do my best to convince them to call the power company, have them call me, because whatever I tell them has to be relayed to the power company, and then the interpretation of things are somewhat different, and it typically creates more problems than not. So, but amateur radio operators, I I have many amateurs that hire me directly to do it because their power company just doesn't know how to do it. Once I find it, they call them and then they go out and fix it. That's very common. As far as amateur problems, probably 90% of the problems that I go out and locate are due to the complaints from amateur radio operators.
Is that right? Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty substantial.
Do expand on that then.
Expand on it.
I mean, do you explain? I mean, do you mean that their interference is maybe born on their property?
Oh no! It's almost never the ham's fault.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood you, Mike.
Yeah, the problems are they're not always power company. They can sometimes it's cable TV, sometimes it's a business, sometimes it's a marijuana grow house where they're growing pot inside the garage, the lighting from it and things like that. There's all types of different things, but most of the jobs that I'm hired to do, other than training, about half of what I do is actually training the power companies so they can go out and do it. So I travel all over the country training power companies, doing 2-day workshops for them to train them. That's about half of my work. The other half is actually going out to the ones that they can't find and then locating the problem and tell them what to fix.
Yeah, because it's the reason I asked the question about how much of your work is at least derived from complaints from amateurs is because, of course, most of us who get a license, or all of us who get a license, we do have to study various degrees about EMC to understand some of it ourselves. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wrote that. I will admit, I wrote that question down on my notes early in your talk, thinking that I was thinking, well, why would radio amateurs call you when they should know enough themselves? But having seen what you do and the specialist equipment that you use, including that radar receiver, I can see that this is very specialist work.
Absolutely.
It's very good. And I'm not sure, you said I think early in the talk as well, that you were fairly unique in what you do. Is there anybody else that does what you do?
To the best of my knowledge, I've only known of one company in the past 45 years. Well, actually, there's two. There was one a long time ago that started the business, and somebody told me about them. I'd never heard of them. I looked them up on the internet, and on the cover of their internet, the homepage, it showed two guys on a right of way finding power line noise. And I thought it was kind of cool, it's like finding out you got a brother, So I went looking for him, and I sent the guy a message, and I said, hey, this is who I am. I said, I'd like to talk to you guys, and I went on to explain that, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. And honestly, I figured I got somebody that could help me out. And they never responded. So I called them, I left messages, they would never respond to me. And then a buddy of mine called me and said, hey man, that website is down. So I went to the website, and the website's no longer there. So they were in business for a short period of time. What I do looks very easy. It really does. And, most power companies aren't very good at doing this job. Most of them don't know the things that I've just told you guys. Very few of them get the opportunity to do this enough to learn these things. They take things for granted. They read a lot of books, and a lot of the books that are out there, if they're not written by Marvin Lofness, KB7KK, if they're not written by him or the newest book that I presented to you, then I find a lot of bad information. So most power companies don't know what I've just told you guys in the past, hour, I guess it was.
Well, it is, and in case I forget to say at the end, I really do mean this. We've got a lot of positive comments, by the way, people writing down very, Stuart G4AFF was one of the first up and just says brilliant talk, and it really has been, because it's truly enlightening, I think, the work that you do. And I'm not sure that there's anybody in the UK that does this, and presumably it would be fairly expensive if I was to call you tomorrow and say, could you come and look at a power line down here? So it really is, Mike, seriously, you're obviously providing a great service there. Do you ever get to do a job, and I'm going to relay some questions and some comments from people in a moment, but do you ever have a trouble where you maybe have to go and try and find a fault, and then do you have trouble persuading the power company to actually pay you to go and tell them exactly where the fault is?
No, the only weakness that I have is not being able to repair some of them myself. There are a limited amount of things that I can do. And again, if I'm working for a utility that I've never worked before and they're not used to me and don't know me, it's kind of crazy to think a guy that's not a lineman can come out and fix a power line problem. And most of them don't want any parts of me doing that. And I totally get it. And I don't want to do it anymore anyway. I've done enough of that stuff. But I forgot where I was going now. I was
just asking if you ever had trouble, with power companies actually paying you basically when you've gone to analyze the fault.
Oh no, well I would never expect payment from a company that didn't hire me to begin with. And I've never had a problem with getting paid from a power company. When they hire me, I don't even ask for a contract. If a power company calls me, and I can tell very easily if they're a power company or somebody posing, and I've had that happen too.
Yeah.
But when they call me, I can tell by their questions and my questions that they are from a utility. And when they say we'd like to have you help us with this noise, all I tell them is give me an address. They want an estimate for my services. I send them an estimate, and they give me an address, and I say, when do you want me there? And I go out and I fix it and I bill them. And I mean, I've had to wait as much as 6 months to be paid from a utility, and that was just their process. It wasn't because they didn't want to pay me. It got lost in the paperwork, and that happens. That's something you got to learn to live with when you're in business. It happens.
And do you go? You're based in Maryland, but do you go across the whole state of the whole states?
Oh, I go through every state in the United States, and even I don't want to go outside the country, but I have, and I really don't have any. I'm not interested in going outside the country, really. But yeah, I'm all over the country.
I still find it extraordinary, and I don't think, as I said, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one because of the comments that people are making. So let me go down to some of the questions and points that have been made. This is interesting because although we're a Norfolk amateur radio club and we're based on the east coast of England, this is from our, what do we call, in a friendly way, our Scottish correspondent, because he was based here and now he lives in Scotland. And he is Scottish as well. So the first question from him, Ralph, 2M0RHT, says, you deal with overhead power lines. Do the same issues occur with underground power supplies? And if so, how do you deal with them?
Very, very good question. Almost never. And the reason is, if you've noticed, look at the sources that I've shown you. The sources that I've shown you aren't on underground power. The lines that are underground are typically an enclosed rubber cable, and sometimes they're separated from phase to phase. But when they get to the transformer is typically either mounted on the ground, in the ground, or up on a pole. So the cable comes up, and then it's no longer underground. And I find a lot of problems at that point overhead. But the underground lines, they don't have the hardware involved that the overhead does. So the underground lines, when you have noise created on an underground line, it's either at one of the transformers that are on the ground, and then you open the transformer and you find the problem right there. And it's external to the transformer, but in an enclosed case. But no, underground power lines, when they have problems that aren't hardware at the ends of the line, it doesn't usually last long. I've had a few of them. And for instance, I'll get a call Friday and they got a noise on an underground circuit. And I go out there Monday and investigate it, and I see tire tracks going away from where there's a transformer, or I see the ground has been dug up where they had a fault. Something in there caused a fault. It could be the insulation was nicked or something, and it just ruined the cable. So they had to dig it up and repair it. But no, underground power lines don't. However, I don't really get less complaints from underground areas because the overhead power line feeds that area. And if the overhead power line has a noise on it, it's going to conduct or be received by the amateur that lives on the underground system.
Yeah. I mean, over here in the UK, they try to put a lot more cables underground now because obviously nobody really wants to see all these power cables overground. But
I do.
But you do, of course. But the costs of doing it
Right.
are a lot more expensive, aren't they? Obviously, to dig up the ground.
Yes,
But
very
anyway,
expensive. And who wants to pay for it? You're going to pay for it. If they do your neighborhood, it's going to be in your bill.
yeah, you have a vested interest in this as well, Mike, as you're saying.
Yes, I do.
I can
I
see
do.
that twinkle in your eye.
I do.
But it also sounds like you're busy enough with it, and you must have built an amazing reputation with all of the power companies in the US
Yeah.
to be able to do this.
Honestly, I don't think I've ever had anyone. I don't think I've ever had anyone complain. My most consistent complaint is that I don't charge enough, and I charge a lot. But I have a couple of clients who their company when they look up a contractor, one of the things they look at, and I find this kind of odd. I guess it makes sense, but if I charge half what the other guy charges, they don't think I'm as good as he is. They think I'm half as good as he is. So I had a utility that said they were going to go somewhere else. I said, "Well, where else do you have to go? I want to know about it." And they said, "Well, we got a problem. We don't think you charge enough." I said, "Well, damn, we can fix that."
Well, yeah, but I mean, you can sort of see where they go. But it sounds like you've made yourself a real niche and a unique. You're offering a unique service. I must get back to some of these questions. This is more of a point, a comment than a question. But it comes from Tony G0MQG, who says, "I was asked a few years ago to investigate noise on 2 meters that was making the amateur in question unable to listen to the Radio Society of Great Britain, which is like your ARRL news. He thought it was a local telephone pole outside his house, but turned out to be a cell phone charger that he left plugged into a live socket when not in use charging his phone." And I guess you must have heard that 1,000 times.
I have located that many times, and every time I get something like that, one of the first comments that's made to me by the customer, or in this case the ham, is that I've shut off everything in my house, and the problem didn't go away. They always say that, and of course I know that's not true, because I asked them to explain to me how they did that, and usually that's when they start choking, because you can't just walk around. It's like, I can't tell you how many times I've had customers tell me that they turned everything off, and I go in and I find the TV, the power supply in the TV is causing the interference, and I said, "Did you turn this off too?" And said, "Yeah." I said, "How'd you do it?" And they pick up the remote.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, how do you think that TV comes back on when you hit that remote button again? It must be on, right?"
Well, we are in a different world, aren't we?
Yes, we
the
are.
general public,
We are.
particularly, don't understand that a lot of these
There's
buttons,
quite an evolution.
they're soft. They're soft power buttons, aren't they? Really, because they're all sitting there waiting for you to switch them on. But anyway, I must get back to some of these questions. And really, honestly, lots of great compliments to you, Mike. This is a great talk. John JVPE says, "Thanks, Mike. Absolutely fascinating. Years ago, I worked at the other end of the powerline problems in designing powerline filters for EMC compatibility, mostly on contract, to switch mode power supply manufacturers, with an aim to selling our filters." And he says that I used to use a standard CISPR receiver and Lizens, which is what is that? A line in, I can't remember what Lizen stands for now, but I know what you mean. Do you know what I mean by Lizen?
No.
It's line something, and I can't remember. It was used when I started doing EMC testing on our equipment. But anyway, it was. Oh yeah, here we go. Tammy's found it. It's a line impedance stabilization network.
Right.
So you probably know it as something else.
Yeah.
So it is fascinating. Jim, G3YLA's got a question for you. Fascinating talk, Mike. Do you find coastal areas more prone, or is there a particular region in the States that has more problems than other places?
Yeah, definitely not the coastal areas. The coastal areas have a totally different kind of problem. They have a lot of corona issues on their insulators. The salt causes conduction to be very high around the insulators, and so that the coastal areas typically go around and clean off the insulators to stop that from happening. But that's not typically the interference problem to hams. It's a different type of problem. I would say the worst of the problems are in, of course, the more drier areas. If I went to a place and did an assessment of noise in an area, I would say I'm going to find more around places like Arizona, the drier desert type areas. but that isn't, I mean, my complaints are everywhere, you know. I'd have to say that the complaints are typically in the more medium to low income areas, because they're older, the infrastructures are older, power lines are older, the poles are older, and hardware is more loose, things like that.
Yeah, I'm guessing that Jim might have asked you that as well, because the of the corrosion effects on from salt water on on conductors and other things around, and like the problems with the staples on the poles, which I found fascinating. How many volts you had between staples?
Yeah, about that.
Absolutely, I was gripped to that, and I'm sure others will be as well. So that he may have been asking about that, the effects of salt water on various bits of equipment, but you're saying it's
Well,
generally not really.
yeah. Well, remember, those voltages that I showed on the staples were actual sources. Every piece of metal on that pole has a voltage on it. Everything, whether there's noise or not, um, there's voltage there. It's when you have two things together and there's a difference of potential between the two that the noise occurs. But you can measure voltage on a staple 4 feet off the ground. If you put a probe on the ground wire and put the other probe on a staple, you'll read a voltage.
And they were significant voltages. That's what got me. They were hundreds of
Well,
volts.
because it's only 3 feet from the power
I
line.
guess. Oh yeah, I suppose. But
Yeah, the
still.
closer you get to the power line, the electromagnetic field diminishes about 50% every 3 feet. I think it's every 3 feet. The field is cut in half. So the further away you get, the lower the
So
level
that's
of the
like the
noise,
square
the less
law,
problem.
which applies to other
Yes.
things. Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
one other final question for you. You said that a lot of your work, half your work roughly, is training people, training linesmen. To what
Yes.
level then do the power companies employ the linesmen that you've trained, and do they buy the same sort of equipment as you to try and do some of this themselves?
Yes. When I go there, my first step is, after all the arrangements are made, I want to know every piece of equipment that they have, and whether it's working or not. And either they get it fixed before I come, or they can send it to me and I'll fix it before I go out there, because I want everything that they would use when I'm not there. I want to know what it is and tell them how it's going to work. When I get there, I also tell them, for instance, the MFJ, I say, this isn't worth having. It's going to cause you more problems than good. This is going to create more work for you than you want. It's just not a good piece of equipment. And then every piece of equipment that they have, I let them know whether it's good or bad, and I make recommendations to them on what they want to buy. They only need to buy those 3 or 4 things that I said, and then they don't need anything else. That people go out and spend $30,000-$40,000 on spectrum analyzers, and such a waste. Now, if you have to use that spectrum analyzer for something else and you need justification for buying it, then that's a good purchase. You're going to use it for something else too. The problem is it isn't going to get you where you need to be, and it's a very expensive way to do it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're using the same equipment that I do, the radar engineers equipment.
Mike, as I said, it has really been fascinating. This is a talk, it's been very different for us, I think. Most of the times it's traditional sort of things we learn about. This was very different. And we really
Good.
thank you for being generous as well with sharing a lot of your knowledge so that we can try and put something right, because I'm not sure that many of us can afford to pay you a fee to come out and sort problems here in England, nice though it would
Yeah.
be. So we
Well,
really do appreciate what you've done.
well, keep this in mind. One of the things that I do, I mean, I get emails every day from hams all over the country and all over the world. I just trained a guy in Puerto Rico, to find noise, and he's going to start a business there, and I'm going to send him work. But uh, if, for instance, I get calls, everybody that contacts me about a problem, I put in a file, and I have a file that's a list of complaints by state. So if I'm going to Florida, everybody that's complained to me in Florida, I look over if any of them are a reasonable distance from where I'm going to be. When I get done working for the power company, I go out and find their noise, because their power company can't. Uh, I mean, what else am I going to do when I'm there? If my wife comes with me, it's a little different. We go out and run around at night. But if I have time when I'm in a state, anybody that I know is there, I'll give them a call and say, hey, I'm going to be here. What can I do to help you out?
It is
And that works out
fantastic.
well.
As I say, once again, thank you very much for being so generous with your time and the knowledge and the experience that you've shared with us tonight. It might help us solve some problems, and certainly, instead of trying to solve problems, that particularly the map you showed of Orlando, I think, where The amateur was one side of the city, but the problem was actually completely other side, which is not what you'd expect. So thank you for everything you shared with us tonight, and we wish you well.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Thank you.
There we go. Thanks again to Mike K3RFI. What a fascinating talk. Really, really different and hopefully very useful to all of us. I think it will make us think twice now if we ever see a problem like that again. Just time to remind you what's happening this week in the club. So remember, it's not a event scheduled this Saturday as it normally would be. It's on the following Saturday, the 15th of November. On Sunday at 7 o'clock, we've got the GB2RS news on GB3MB. Monday, a Monday Night Net, also on GB3MB with Steve G3AVA hosting that for us. And next Wednesday, November the 12th, a week from tonight, we'll be at the school between 7 and 9:30 for a social informal evening. And don't forget to please keep sending your news, pictures, and anything else that we can do to help you and keep everybody connected with and entertained, hopefully, as well. That's it, though, from me and from Tammy.
Bye-bye.
And from me, all the best. Take care of yourselves. Look after each other. Bye-bye.